Hey everybody, welcome to another solo episode of Soul Chat. I am your host, Ebony Tutora, your wellness, inner holistic healing coach, here to share with you a really important topic. And I feel like every time I go to introduce myself in my intro, I'm like, I'm just an amazing, dope person. And if you are someone who's interested in the healing journey and elevating and shifting your thoughts, right? Because the minute we begin to shift our thoughts, we become different people. Sometimes our minds are just opened up in new directions. And this is a really pivotal, important episode because this is going to really help you shift how you view something. So if there's something I'm really great at helping you get the view of it. Sometimes we need to see healing in a different way or in a way that also makes sense in a logical way. So I hope that's adding up as I really get ready to get into this. So we're going to talk today about the self the self, but we're going to spell it Cellph, right? Why? Because there's something so important about looking at a cellular structure. Now, as I become an older person, I feel like as I get older, I need to get into science because I love science because I think as much as science and religion can go back and forth, I see them in unison in many ways. So this episode, I'm talking about the self and the cellular structure. As you think about a cellular structure, if you're not familiar with one, it's okay. This is not a test. There's not a pop quiz. You don't have to know a lot of stuff. Go to Google and just look up cellular structure, right? So a cellular structure has an outside, another inside part, and the middle part, right? And I'm sure there are some other components, but your inner part of a cell is called a nucleus. Yes. So why is this so important, especially on the journey to self-love, especially on the journey to elevating and learning yourself, trusting yourself, um, being within yourself, right? And look how many times we use this word self, self, self. Every time you hear self, I want you to think cell, right? Because what I can recognize in the past 2 years was that I was not inside myself. Now, I had a bunch of practices that helped me maintain a sense of center. I had, a lot of great friends that helped me maintain a sense of center. I still continue to show up and do the things that help me feel centered. However, for a lot of those other situations, I was not centered. I was not in my center. So let's talk about this self. The nucleus is so important because lot of times in our journeys, we're not in our nucleus. We're not, and look at the nucleus as your center, right? You being inside your cell, your cell self, right? And you are focused, you have clarity, you don't take things personal because you're able to recognize, whoa, like clearly that person's not having a good day. I'm not going to take on the energy. It's an elevated way of being because you are inside yourself. And a lot of times we can't elevate, we don't elevate because you're not inside yourself in a relationship. And I'm talking about the relationships that don't work because relationships that do work, this is something that's been so pivotal in my life. When relationships do work, I don't have to manage your emotions. I don't have to worry about what I'm about to say. I don't have to dance around your things. I don't have to consider your things. And this is why I say relationships that work, that don't work, because when relationships do work, there's a level of maturity, there's a level of everyone carrying their own self, their self. And you don't have to carry their emotions. You don't have to carry their worries. You don't have to carry their fears. Like obviously there's a level of support and interdependency that's going to happen in relationships that do work. And I can model these behind my friendships, right? However, when relationships don't work, we will find ourselves always outside ourselves. because we're worrying about what the other person thinks. We're worrying about what the other person's doing. We're worrying about, did you eat for the day? Not that that's not a bad thing, right? You want to check on your partner. Did you eat today, right? However, a lot of times when these relationships don't work, it will cause us to focus so much outside of ourselves on that other person, right? And that's something I've learned is that when something does work, it's because two people are growing separately, but they're also growing together, right? And there's not this imbalance of focus, right? When you are both, usually there's always going to be an imbalance when relationships don't work, where there's someone's giving up more effort. Someone's putting more effort out of their cellular structure than they got, okay? And that's how things begin to fall apart, right? Is it's unequally yoked, as the Bible would share with us. So the reason why this thinking is so important to consider when you think about yourself is because as I was reflecting on myself, and this was just something I came to, it had to be at least within this year. I recognized I was outside myself. So, like I said, I had the things that were keeping me, maintaining a sense of center, but the challenges that I needed to grow through, the shit, and we're gonna say the shit that would trigger me, and that was the lesson, was that I was being triggered, but the triggers were teaching me. Triggers are always pathways. Triggers are always pathways teaching you what you have not yet learned, right? What you have not yet understood, right? So if someone, recently I got a text that said, "You're so useless." Now, if I was not in my center, I'd be like, first of all, the cloth that you were cut from, right? I would go there. And I used to, let me tell you, I was maintaining peace, but then I have moments where I'm like, wait a minute. Let me tell you about yourself, right? And it's so not helpful. It's not helpful to you to be like that. It's not helpful to that person to be like that. And because words are magic, why am I wasting my good old words, my breath? Everyone take a deep inhale with me. Deep exhale. Why are we wasting our breath on negativity? Why? Because we have not learned the lesson of self, of being in our center, of being in our nucleus, where you're like, oh my gosh, you're wounded. You're hurting, right? Because only someone hurt could muster something like that out of their being, right? And that was something I actually stopped this year where I was like, I'm not going back and forth because I recognize, girl, you outside yourself. Every time you respond, and that's why they'll be like, that's why there's quotes and there's things out there that'll be like, haters love your attention. Haters love when you focus on them. Call it whatever you want because everyone's a part of your soul journey, right? Call it whatever you want. But the reason why is because they're so out of their center. It's like a child, right? When children want attention, sometimes they do things that make no sense. Sometimes they get in trouble, right? And you as a parent, you're like, why are you doing that? But when you begin to understand, they really just want love. And this is true for every age group. Love, attention, to be seen, to be heard, to be felt, to be understood, right? So adults literally do the same thing. They'll say some crazy shit to get your attention because they want to be seen, heard, felt, understood, all the things, right? Loved. And it's backwards because it's when you unhealed, you're gonna do a lot of backwards things. Okay, you're gonna do a lot of backward things. So that's why it's so important to ask yourself, am I inside my cellular structure? Am I in my center? Right? And for those of you that do have self-care practices, sometimes we're just maintaining the self-care practice, which is a good thing. That's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to maintain the practice because the worst thing is to be going through all of that and have no practices and have nowhere to go that feels like an anchor, like a center, right? Not a friend, not a meditation, right? That keeps you in that, at the very least, a small center space. But what I'm telling you is you can take back even more of your center by looking at the situations you respond to negatively and looking at the things and the reasons why you need to grow and the ways that you react. And first change one thing, change the way you react. If you react in anger, work on that. If you react in shutting down, work on that. If you react in sarcasm, work on that, right? These are all opportunities to work on ourselves, right? I really don't like to get into the discussions of they, them, what everyone else is doing, haters, people that go against us. Like, they're all wounded people. But guess what? When you yourself are in your center and have places of center inside yourself, your cellular structure, your nucleus, you will thrive regardless. There's no weapon formed against you shall prosper. You know why weapons form against us? Because what? Everyone repeat this after me. We are outside of our what? Our selves. Cellph. Because you being inside your center and your nucleus makes you so powerful. And this is the lesson I got to learn at a really young age. A really young age. I remember being in high school, and this is when I started to pull back from people because I got to high school and I was like, dang, like girls just be wanting to start with me. Like I'm peaceful. I ain't trying to fight nobody. Like, girl, I ain't on that type of time. And I'm like, on top of that, I grew up with brothers. So little do you know, I'm Layla Ali over here, and I'm trying to leave you be because I got hands. Okay, I got hands. I can, I done did a little boxing training. Okay, ma'am, right? And I just wasn't that person, though. Seriously, for real. I mean, beyond that, I ain't trying to put my hands on nobody. Like to me, that just always seemed like just like that's like it's not even last resort. It's like unnecessary, it's unnecessary. Um, and I remember it was a younger student. So at this time, I might have been in about 10th grade. It was a younger student who probably was like in ninth grade. And she was just sharing with me, oh, this girl, she doesn't like me, da, da, da. And I was like, okay, well, I kind of dismissed them. I was like, okay, well, whatever. Like, don't worry about her. She's a bird. Like, we used to say that. I'm like, she's a bird. Like, don't worry about her. Do you know that this younger girl goes and tells, so the other girl was older. So it's almost like me in between grades. The other girl's like an 11th grader. She's a ninth grader. I'm a 10th grader. She goes and she tells the girl, and I get it. She tells it almost like to take the heat off of her. Like, oh, well, I understand you don't like me, but Ebony said you're a bird. Right? So I remember it's lunchtime. She comes up to me and she's like, with a whole crew behind her, and I'm hanging out by myself, okay, honey? Because my best friend, you know who you are if you listen to this, she was in the streets, okay? Nowhere to be found. Probably only came to school for lunch at that time. So she comes up, crew of girls, and she's like, I heard you said I was a bird. And verbatim, this was my response. I did, because you are. She goes, okay, well, I think you're a bird. Silence. And I just stared at her because I know she had a plan. For those that know, she had a plan. She had a plan that I'm gonna go up to her, I'm gonna ask her, like she thought she was coming to take me down, honey. Okay. And I'm so grateful for this lesson. I learned so many lessons that were important as a young teen. Thank you, God. Thank you, okay? Because it really set me up for a really great future to understand some things. So silence hits, right? I'm staring at her. It was an elapsed amount of time, okay? And I just remember going, okay, well, if you want to find me, I'm gonna go eat lunch. Have a good day. And then I just walked away. And that was the end of that. She didn't say nothing else. I didn't say nothing else. That was it. But it taught me so much about being in my center and being unbothered about like the energy other people are putting out, right? And learning, sometimes you got to give people silence. Sometimes you got to stop sending them long messages trying to explain yourself. When you're doing that, you're actually doing the same thing they're doing, trying to be seen, trying to be heard. What do we do when we yell, especially as parents? We want to be heard. We think our children don't hear us. It doesn't make them hear us more. It scares the shit out of them and it messes up their nervous system. I'm not judging you because I lose my cool every once in a blue too. Right? I'm working on it. Right? It's something we get to elevate and continue to work on because it's all about self. It's all about staying in our center. This life is not about, perfecting something, and it's like we look at these gurus who, can go meditate in the mountains. And I just think a lot of times they don't have, like, if I was isolated all the time, I don't have a lot of triggers. I'm going to become very elevated, right? But we get to do this in our day-to-day busy lives where you got to pull away from some things, right? There's certain shows you need to stop watching. If you watch a lot of shows with drama trauma, you're continuing to program that into your nervous system, right? You watch a lot of hip hop, housewives. I don't know what y'all be watching these days, even movies, right? If you're watching that stuff, that's still programming that into you. It's making it acceptable. That's not acceptable to me. So I don't want to see people arguing. I don't want to see people, you know, doing crazy things. I don't want to read the news about crazy things that's going on, right? Because I desire to maintain a sense of centeredness and peace within myself. I do not watch the news, right? And this goes down to your root chakra. Like a lot of us feel ungrounded. We feel like our world is constantly shaking and we can't figure it out. And it's a you thing, you yourself. And until we take accountability for that, especially as adults, it's not your fault what happens to you, but it's absolutely your responsibility to heal going forward, right? And I'm telling you, if you can look at this cellular structure and every day be like, am I in my center today? Am I centered? What took me out of my center? Why did it take me out of my center? What feelings did it evoke? Because that is where the juiciness is. That is where you're going to learn so much. You're going to learn so much about yourself. You're going to learn so much about where you need to grow, where you need to evolve. And like I said, it's not really a challenging thing, especially if you're someone who sends long text messages. Stop. Stop trying to prove to someone else how they're wrong. Stop trying to prove to someone else how you're right. Because there are people who not only are they committed to misunderstanding us, but they're so outside of their center. You can't hear nothing when you're outside of your center because you're chaotic. You know, it's like when you split a cell, right? It's like it'll keep splitting, right? You know, or it's like we allow too many things into our cellular structure. What's that called? Disease, right? No, the balance is stay in your damn center. When you feel yourself going a little left, going a little right, and I'm telling you this because 2025 is for us. 2025 is saying reclaim your power. Stop staying in these relationships that don't work. Stop staying in these spaces where you have to over explain yourself because that shit right there takes you outside of yourself. And let me tell you, when you're outside of yourself, what happens? Because it happened to me, confidence drops, the bank account drops, your sense of security and knowing yourself drops, your intuition drops because there's too many things you yourself are investing in that are outside of you. And God did not call us for that. When you are centered and you stay centered within yourself, you are unfuckwithable, honey. Okay? And that's who we need to be for 2025 and beyond. That is absolutely who we need to be. No more stress, no more stressing over things that we can't control, having the wisdom to know the difference. And if you lose your shit every once in a blue, ask better questions. Well, dang, what was that about? Why did I feel that way? Right? Why did I react that way? And I'm telling you, it really comes down to those few elements. You want to be seen, you want to be heard, you want to be loved, you want to be understood, you want to be felt. All those things are kind of the same, right? It's that inner child within us, you know, and this is why healing is so essential. Healing that inner child, going back to that inner child, doing sound therapy, doing timeline therapy, where you're getting back into those inner child moments and you're going there and you're healing it. So I'm going to continue sharing some tips with y'all. What I need y'all to do, I shared this last podcast and y'all still be DMing me. Okay. I'm tired of taking screenshots of y'all DM. I need you to go to the podcast episode, leave a comment because that lets the algorithm know this is valuable. We love this. So more people can see this podcast. This podcast has been going since 2017. Can't believe it. Some years I literally produced like 5 episodes. And that's okay because we're still here going strong. And definitely leave your comment. And I want to hear your feedback. I want to hear your feedback. Other people want to hear your feedback of what you took away from it, right? Because we all need to see that we're not alone. We're not alone. We're not alone in how we feel. Yes, I have mastered some things and I have maintained a sense of peace and calm. But guess what? That doesn't mean I don't experience chaos. I just have tools to navigate. And that's all we get in life. We just get more tools to navigate. Okay. So, welcome to life. But we're doing this together. So, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I so appreciate you so much. Once again, leave a comment, a review if you're on Apple Podcasts. Spotify, you can leave a comment. YouTube, you can leave a comment. Share this with someone else. Tag me. Okay, share it, tag me so that I can shout you out, love on you, give you a big air hug. Because I really do appreciate it. I really do appreciate it as I share myself, my best self with you. Yeah, I woke up super early to do this podcast to make sure we got it out. So I am so just fulfilled in getting this episode out. Thank you to my strong friends who continue to propel me to have these conversations. And every time I talk to my girl Carla Love, she'd be like, "Ooh, that's a podcast. That's a podcast episode." So shout out to you, Carla. I love you so much. Get you some strong friends. Like I said in the last episode, if you do not have them, pray for them because we all need people in our corner. That's what's actually really pivotal. Maybe that'll be the next podcast is to have people in your corner who help you stay centered and inside yourself. It's pivotal. It's pivotal. Okay. Pivotal. Sometimes you need people to be like, girl, what you responding to that for? Don't you know who you are? So I even sung for y'all today. So that's even special. So I will see y'all next week, which is my birthday weekend. Send gifts. That is my love language is gifts, okay? Especially having a December 28th birthday, right? So anyways, thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. I will see you on the next one.